Hello everybody, welcome back once again to the Lost Odyssey walkthrough. Alright, so, I noticed that when I, just loaded my game there, it started to dream up right away. We're basically, we're inside the refugee camp, and wow, this is too loud. Hang on a minute. That is way too loud. Okay, there we go. Okay. But yeah, we're in the, inside the refugee... Oh, this is so annoying. There we go. And, yeah, for whatever reason, this dream started right away. So, yeah, we'll, I had to just, reload my game. And, yeah, so now we'll actually get to see it. Oh, yeah, there you go. Look at that. That's so weird. Aw, he's got a cute little Brett in his hair. Some of these items, man, are just hilarious. Alright, Kime recalls a memory that was locked deep within his heart. Dream has been revealed. Alrighty, let's dream. So this one, I think, is called the Stones of Heaven. I don't know why it didn't, like, the title didn't show up. So I feel like some of the dreams don't do that, and I don't really understand why that's the case. You know, sometimes whatever the story will start, and then the dream title will show up eventually, but that doesn't seem to be the case for this one. Alright, anyways. The waterfall lies deep in the forest, more than a day's travel from the nearest village. It is said to be a holy place. In search of the divine amid the towering peaks, pilgrims stand between the plunging falls in their final ascetic practice. The water of the falls is freezing cold. All it takes is a momentary lapse of concentration, and the person is hammered down by the rushing water. There it is. So yeah, why is the title over here and not... I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'm being too picky. Alright, the pilgrims call this waterfall the Stones of Heaven. Heaven is testing their mental and physical strength, they say, by hurling an endless stream of stones down upon them in the form of a powerful waterfall. And the stones have a mysterious power, a former pilgrim says to Kime with a pained smile. He himself failed in this final austerity, he adds. Different stones of heaven fall on each person. It's as if they can see into your heart. What do you mean, Kime asks. The burdens you bore and the dreams you dreamed in the secular world appear to you one after another. In his own case, he says, what came to him first were the voices of women. Oh, yes. No, that goes. The water plunging down into the basin of the falls began to sound like women's voices, sweet voices whispering in my ear, voices sobbing, voices moaning in a lover's embrace. An incredible variety. And for better or worse, I knew every single one of them. Some I was thrilled to hear again, while others I hated remembering. Meaning, you've gotten yourself into a lot of trouble involving women. I have indeed, not to boast or anything, but that was one battlefield I knew better than anybody. I survived, but I made a lot of women cry, and there were a lot of them I loved. My whole purpose in undertaking the austerities was to put that life behind me, but the stones of heaven knew what they're doing. In the final test, they go after your greatest weakness. If you waver the slightest bit, you've had it. The water slams you down and your austerities are over. The man feeds a stick of kindling into the campfire, and I'm not the only one, he continues. One fellow heard the voice of the mother he hadn't seen since he was a little boy. Another heard the voice of his dead child. Is it always voices? I wish it were. If you hold up through the voices, the water's mist starts changing into the shapes of people. You might see somebody who you hated so much in the secular world that you wanted to kill him, or it might be some loan shark you had to go into hiding to get away from. One little flinch, and you're done for. This particular austerity can be performed only once. There are no second chances. Someone who has persevered for a whole day and night, but who fails in the end has no choice but to return to the secular world in defeat, as this man did. Not that it was easy for me to get on my feet again once I was back there either. The man chuckles and calls out to a young pilgrim, or more precisely, to a young man who was a pilgrim until a few moments ago, but who has just now dragged himself up to the lip of the basin in utter dejection. "Hey, young fellow, the campfire's over here. I've got liquor to warm up your insides and some fresh grilled meat. Get a little of that in your stomach and you'll have the strength to make it down to the village." The man now makes his living as master of the tea house by the waterfall. Of course, pilgrims undergoing austerities carry no money with them, but the man is not expecting to become rich doing his work. For bodies chilled by long hours of pounding under the waterfall, he provides a warming fire, food and drink, and sometimes even money to tide them over when they first go down to the village. Payment can be made at any time. The men can bring him the money after they have settled to take in earnings again from jobs they find in the secular world. He sets no date for repayment. He takes no IOUs. He says he is fine with that. "Aren't there some who don't pay at all?" Kime asks. "Of course there are," the man says matter-of-factly. "But I think of my running this tea house as another kind of discipline for myself." "Another kind of discipline?" "That's right. The stones of heaven will accept only the strongest pilgrims, the ones unperturbed by anything. The role I want to play is to accept the ones who were broken by the stones of heaven, the weak human beings. I want to go on accepting the weakest of the weak, the kind who not only succumb to the stones of heaven, but who even fail to pay for their food and drink afterwards." "That is your kind of discipline?" "Exactly. It makes for a hard living, that's for sure. I thought I was prepared to deal with cheats and weaklings, but there are a lot more of those than I ever bargained for," he declares with a hearty laugh. But then he quickly turns serious and says, "To tell you the truth, I think of this as a form of discipline than as a way to get even." Get even? With whom? "With those gods, or whatever they are, that keep hurling down their stones of heaven. Human beings are weak, shockingly so, in the eyes of a god. But I think, and this is not just because of what happened to me, that being weak is the best thing about human beings. Weakness can make us cunning, but it can also make us unkind. Weakness can torment us, but it can just as easily be our salvation. Don't you see? If the gods are hurling down their stones of heaven just to make people aware of their own weakness, just to make us savor our own powerlessness, then I'd just as soon drop my trousers and moon them. I'd slap my bare butt and say to them, 'I'm not like you. I'm not going to punish human beings for being weak. I accept them for what they are, weakness and all.'" The man feeds a new piece of kindling into the fire and says with a shy shrug, "I guess I got carried away." Kime smiles and shakes his head as if to say, "Not at all." "Tell me, though," the man goes on, "I see you're a traveler, but you don't seem to be a pilgrim." "You're right, I'm not," Kime says. "I was trying to cross over the pass and took the wrong road." "Well then, as long as you're here, why not give the stones of heaven a try? It'll be something to talk about." "No thanks," Kime says, smiling. "What's the matter? Afraid they're going to show you whatever it is that shakes you up?" The man smiles and nods. "Can't say I blame you, though." The man is mistaken about Kime. He is not the least bit afraid of such a thing. What scares him is the opposite prospect, that of not being shaken up, of encountering in him a person unmoved by anything at all. Anyway, it would be a suicide to jump into the waterfall without preparation. How's that? It's freezing cold, for one thing. There's even colder water bubbling up from a spring in the basin. Even the most well-conditioned person has to be careful and take time to accustom himself to the low temperature. If you go in all at once, it can stop your heart. The man jerks his chin in the direction of the falls as if to say, "Look at them." Two new pilgrims are preparing themselves for the challenge of the stones of heaven. The men appear to be brothers. The older one kneels at the edge of the basin, splashing himself and massaging the cold water into his skin from foot to heart level. The younger brother is too impatient for that. He wants to jump right under the falls. The elder brother cautions him and takes all the time he needs to accustom himself to the water's coldness. He exudes the quiet power of one who has withstood the most rigorous training. "Aha," the tea house owner says to Kime, smiling. "We're in for a rare privilege. I think we're about to see the first successful attempt in a long while. You can tell? Kime asks. You can if you've spent as much time here as I have. The winners and losers are decided before the men ever step under the falls. Having completed his meticulous preparations, the elder brother enters the basin. Even then, the steps he takes are slow and cautious. The younger brother follows him in, kicking up a spray with every step. The younger one is hopeless, says the man with a sigh, adding another stick of kindling to the fire. I'd better get the liquor ready now, he mutters to himself. The brothers stand side by side beneath the pounding waterfall. The stones of heaven rain down upon them. As the man predicted, the elder brother, utterly calm, stands up to the onslaught of images sent by the stones of heaven. Also, as the man predicted, the younger brother yields to the stones of heaven and is beaten down into the basin of the waterfall. But then, something happens that goes far beyond what the man predicted. Writhing in agony, the younger brother bobs helplessly in the basin, unable to raise himself. He is drowning. He tears at his own chest. His heart is failing. He was not fully prepared to enter the icy water. Help me, brother, please! But the elder brother doesn't move. He remains under the waterfall in total concentration. Hey, what are you doing there? Hurry and help him, the man yells, but the elder brother's expression remains unchanged. He never flinches. He's drowning. You can't just leave him like that. He'll die. The elder brother never moves. He grits his teeth, keeps his eyes clamped shut, and shows no sign of moving out from under the waterfall, as if to declare, this is it. This is the final test of the stones of heaven. The man screams at him, you idiot, and dives into the roiling basin in a rash effort to help the younger brother. For the moment, his untrained body hits the frigid water. The shock of it seizes his heart. Still, he reaches out towards the drowning brother who was sinking beneath the surface. A great shudder goes through him, and with an enormous groan, he takes hold of the young man's wrist and pulls his limp body toward him. He tries to return to the shore, but his strength gives out, and he falls back into the water. Next, it is Kime's turn to dive into the basin beneath the falls. He takes hold of the two unconscious men and drags them towards the shore. The stones of heaven pour down on Kime, and he is assaulted by one vision after another. Battlefields, scenes from his wanderings, shooting stars, the climbing and sinking sun, raging winds, and countless deaths of those he has come to know on the road of his all-too-long life. It will do you no good, he silently declares to the gods hurling the stones of heaven at him. My heart remains unmoved. I have lived through a reality far crueler than any phantom you can show me. Whether or not his life is a sign of his strength, he does not know. He will not boast of it, nor will he tell the tale to others. He has, however, lived it. That much is certain. He has lived it through the years. Kime climbs onto the shore and lays the limp bodies of the tea-house master and the younger brother beside the fire. As he warms himself, he thinks, the gods who hurl the stones of heaven are inferior gods. If they could truly see into everything, they would never have been foolish enough to show Kime scenes from his past. For what would disturb him most of all would be the unwelcome sight of moments from his own limitless future. And if they were to ask him one simple question, for what purpose were you born, his knees would buckle in an instant. The first to regain consciousness is the young pilgrim. The tea-house master's condition is critical. Kime's attempts to warn him and massage his clenched heart have little effect. Pull yourself together now. Look, we've got a fire here. The fire you built. Let it warm you. Kime shouts into his ear until the man finally manages to force his eyes open a crack and move his purple lips. Is he all right? Sure, he's fine. Don't worry. Oh, good, good. Pull yourself together, man. Tell me, though, is strength the same as coldness? Never mind, stop talking. Because if that is true, if strength is coldness, I don't want any part of it. The man gives Kime a faint smile and closes his eyes. He will never open them again. Human beings are weak and fragile. All it takes for a person to die is for a fist-sized organ to stop beating. Human kindness, on the other hand, may derive from everyone's. Facing the tea house master's life's corpse, the younger brother hangs his head and cries. This weak man, defeated by the stones of heaven, sheds heartfelt tears for the man who saved his life. His strong elder brother, meanwhile, is still being pounded by the waterfall, unfazed by the stones of heaven. Surely his strength will be recognized by the gods, and he will bring his ascetic training to perfect completion. Still, Kaim finds the tear-stained face of the younger brother beautiful in a way the stronger elder brother can never be, and he wishes that he himself could be moved like the younger man. There was an unmatched nobility in the last smile of the tea-house master who gave up his life to save that of a complete stranger. Kaim wishes that he, too, could experience such feelings. And what of my own face? Living through 1,000 years of life is not strength, yet burdened with a life he cannot lose, will Kaim ever be able to change weakness into kindness? This he cannot tell. He can only live unknowingly. He can only walk on. He can only continue his journey. Kaim looks at his reflection in the basin of the waterfall. On the water's heaving surface, he sees the trembling face of a lonely wanderer. End. Ah, that's cute. So his reflection at the end isn't, a vision. It's just him. All right. That was very cool. There was one line there, though, where it looked like the game just proceeded, so I couldn't read all of it. So that was a little annoying, but I think we got the gist of it anyway. Okay, so that was Stones of Heaven. Let's go into the medical tent. There is actually another dream in there, so I'll hammer that one out, and then we can continue. I think this is the medical tent here. Indeed. All right, here we are. Troubled Melaine. Ow, it hurts. Mom said I'd get better if I take my medicine, but it still hurts. Well, you better get better. Take that. Kaim recalls a memory that was locked deep within his heart. All right, 1 second here. Okay, let's pick this back up here. So, all right, Kaim recalls a memory that was locked deep within his heart. A dream has been revealed. Let's dream. Signpost. I'll be gone soon, Henri says, so it makes no difference, a life like this. She smiles with some effort, puts a gray tablet on her tongue, and swallows it. Use or possession of this drug by ordinary people is prohibited by law and strictly controlled. The person taking it feels as if every bone in his or her body is melting. All the anxieties and cares of life vanish as the individual wanders in the space between languor and pleasure. Why don't you take one too? Henri pulls another tablet from her leather pouch and holds it out to Kaim, who is standing by her bed. Coward, she says with a grim smile when he shakes his head in silence. And then she places the second tablet on her tongue. How many pills does that make today? Kaim asks. I forget. With empty eyes, Henri stares into space and sighs. This is an addiction. A serious one. How do you feel? He asks. Not bad, she says. Very happy. She gives him a smile. It is deeper and softer than her earlier smile. Though maybe too deep and too soft, it appears to be a smile of ultimate bliss, but for that very reason, it also has a frightening quality that sends chills up his spine. The drug is called Signpost. This is not its formal designation, of course. People started calling that as a secret code word to avoid prosecution, and the term caught on. Signpost is, however, the single most appropriate name for this drug. Each pill takes the user one step farther down the road, and when withdrawal symptoms strike, the person rushes to take the next pill, thereby advancing yet another step. Farther and farther and farther. The road marked by the signpost is a soothing one, entirely free of pain or suffering. At the end of the road, however, there waits only death. The use and possession of signpost is so strictly prohibited because it is seen as an invitation to gradual suicide. How many more pills, I wonder? Henri mutters, stretching her emaciated body full length on the bed. It is a question that Kime cannot answer. He knows only that she is nearing the end of her signpost journey. It is for this that Kime has been called to this hospital, which is a facility for people on the verge of death. I have no regrets, Henri says. None at all. This way I can die pleasantly, quietly, like going to sleep. Her empty eyes are fixed on Kime, but they seem to register nothing. I'll be fine. She reaches into the leather pouch again. You probably shouldn't do that, Kime says. I'm telling you I'm fine, she says, laughing weakly, and placing a third signpost in her mouth. She closes her eyes. Her sunken eye sockets harbor dark shadows. Kime settles himself into the chair by her bed. He waits for her to say more, but she seems to have fallen asleep. Her breathing is calm, and a slight smile plays upon her sleeping face. The signpost seems to be working. Without the drug, hammer-like pains in her back and violent chills would prevent her from sleeping. Even worse than the physical suffering would be the fear of approaching death. More than a girl than a woman, young Henri was struck by a mortal illness. At the end of her long battle with the disease, the doctor gave up all hope of treating it and prescribed signpost for her instead. Ordinary people are not allowed to use the drug, but special permission has been given to patients for whom there is no hope of recovery in order to afford them a peaceful death and bring their lives to a quiet close. In other words, to enable them to die without having to deal with regret or despair. Before Kime began his work, a doctor explained the effects of the medicine to him, concluding with a smile, in other words, signpost forgives all the debts the person has built up toward life. Henri wakens. After she has confirmed Kai's presence at her bedside, she says, "You don't have to worry," and closes her eyes again, smiling. "I'm fine. I think I can go just like this." So she knows there are other possibilities. In certain rare cases, signposts can have undesirable side effects. Sometimes, at the very end, when the person is just beginning to slide into the abyss of death, there can be an attack of nightmares. The patient experiences a literal death agony, even though signpost has provided such a wonderfully tranquil departure on the person's final journey. Every last bit of tranquility can be swept away on the cusp of death. Worse still, some patients conclude their hallucinatory episode with a frenzied physical outburst. They might have barely enough strength to breathe until, tormented by the nightmares, they lash out violently enough to break the bed or even strangle the caregiver in attendance. Such can be the mysteries of the human body, or more so, the human heart. This is why Kime is here. He is to stand vigil by Henri's deathbed against the remote possibility that she might be tormented by nightmares and go wild under the influence of signpost side effects. The doctor has supplied him with yet another drug. It is a poison that will kill the patient instantly. Kime has been instructed to administer it to Henri as soon as she begins to exhibit strange behavior. "Believe me, this is a humane measure," the doctor said. Not murder by any means. The face of a patient who has suffered the drug's side effects is truly grotesque, not something that anyone could stand to look at. A person's death should never be that excruciating. This is a final kindness to give that person a quiet, peaceful ending. Keim was not entirely convinced by the doctor's rationale. Neither, however, was he able to bring himself to take issue with it. Now he can only hope that, led by her signpost, Henri will be able to pass her final moments in peace. Some part of her inner self might be paralyzed at the moment, and her empty eyes might never regain their former gleam. But if she is happy that way, it is nothing that anyone has the right to deny her. Waking again, Henri reaches for another signpost, but drops the leather pouch. Sorry, but would you pick it up for me? She asks Keim. She no longer has the strength even to hold the pouch. Her final moments are closing in. Keim lifts the pouch from the floor, but when she asks him to put a tablet in her mouth, he hesitates for a moment before complying. Her tongue is dry and rough as sandpaper. She really must be nearing the end. Having taken another signpost, Henri seems to be overtaken by that languorous feeling again. She moves the flesh of her cheeks in a way that has no meaning, releases a feeble sigh, and says, I was just dreaming. What about? About when I was little. Everybody was there. My father, my mother, my big brother and sister, all smiling. This is not a good sign. The drug might be having a bad effect. If the signpost is working properly, she should not be dreaming, especially about her family. The more lingering attachment or regret or sadness a person retains, the more likely he or she is to experience side effects. This is precisely why the family is never admitted to the patient's room. The final farewells are made before the administering of signpost, and only after everything is finished do they meet again. Everybody was in such a good mood. Keim wonders if he should give her another signpost. I'm sure when I was born that my parents never imagined I would die so young. A more seasoned caregiver would probably give her another pill without hesitation. Then Henri would fall into another peaceful sleep without any thoughts to disturb her, perhaps never to wake again. Keim, however, sets the leather pouch on a shelf and waits to hear what else she has to say. Henri herself does not request another signpost, but moves the sunken flesh of her cheeks again. This time the movement takes the form of a deliberate smile. You know, she says to Keim, I'm beginning to wonder. About what? Why I was ever born. Keim is at a loss for words, but she does not let this prevent her from continuing. I mean, if I'm going to die so young, when I've never had a chance to fall in love, wouldn't it have been better if I'd never been born at all? Keim nods, as if to tell her that he understands. Why was I ever born? This is the question that Keim himself has been pondering all through his endless journey. He has still not found the answer, and maybe never will. My mother and father will be sad, I'm sure. You had better rest now. Maybe I was born to make my parents sad. Close your eyes and take a few long, deep breaths. Can I have some more medicine? This time he gives it to her without hesitation. Thank you, she says simply for the first time, and closes her eyes. I guess it's possible I might never wake up again. It's possible. It's a good thing to die without suffering, isn't it? It probably is. And to die with your head in a fog without thinking or feeling anything? That's a good thing too, isn't it? Keim says nothing. This is a question he cannot answer, a question he doesn't want to answer. Henri falls asleep without asking him anything else. She is still sound asleep when the doctor examines her and tells Keim she will probably pass away before the night is out. It is late that night, close to dawn, when Henri begins to suffer. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry. I ate the jam. It was me. She is running a high fever with large drops of sweat on her forehead as she moans deliriously. What's taking you so long, Daddy? Hurry, hurry. The butterfly's going to fly away. Kym wonders if she could be reliving memories of early childhood. You hit me. Big brothers shouldn't hit their little sisters. You're bad. I'm going to tell Mommy. Convulsions rack her entire body. Let me in. I want to play with the big girls. It doesn't end with her delirium. She starts moving her arms as if trying to embrace family members floating above her. This is what they were afraid of. The side effects. Take me with you, please. I don't want to stay here. Don't leave me. Her cries mingle with tears. Hallucinations seem to have taken the place of past memories in her empty eyes. Please, I'll be good. I'll do what you tell me, Mommy and Daddy. Take me with you. In fact, just the opposite is happening. The ones being left behind are the family who so loved their youngest daughter, Henri. Don't leave me alone. Mommy, Daddy, come back, please. He can feel her pain and sorrow. Her convulsions become increasingly violent. Her face contorts in agony. Alerted by the commotion, a doctor comes charging into the room. What are you doing? He shouts at Kym. Put her out of her misery now. Kym knows what he should do. This is what he was hired for. The poison that will prevent Henri from suffering any more is within easy reach. What he takes hold of, softly, however, is not the poison, but the hands that Henri stretches out into empty space. What are you doing? The doctor shouts at him. Stop it. This is in direct violation of your duties. You're fired. Kym turns toward the fuming doctor and simply says, Be quiet, please. What in the hell are you... But the doctor breaks off his shouting when he catches sight of the look on Henri's face. She is smiling. Are these my mother's hands? My father's? Big brothers? Big sisters? Tell me, whose hands are these? She asks joyfully. Feeling the strength of Kym's grasp, she squeezes back, an almost indescribably happy smile on her face, tears streaming from her eyes. I'm here with all of you, together, always. Her convulsions have subsided, and her breathing has calmed down. Kym whispers in her ear, Thank you, Henri. Daddy? Smiling through her tears, she says, I know it's you. Kym smiles back at her and says, I'm speaking for all of us. For me, your mother, your brother, your sister, when I say, Thank you, Henri. Henri seems almost embarrassed when she asks, For what? For having been born, Henri. For having come to be with us. For having allowed us to share time with you. Mommy and I, and big brother and sister, we're all so grateful to you for that. Unfortunately, life has its limits. There are long lives and short lives, and in life, even more unfortunately, there is happiness and unhappiness. There are happy lives and unhappy lives. For all of this, however, for the chance to be alive in the world, for the chance of having lived life in this world, the only thing to say is, Thank you. When Kym says this to her, Henri gives her slender chin a little shake and says, No, I should be the one thanking you. All of you. These are Henri's last words. The look on her face in death following the torment of the drug-induced nightmares is neither tranquil nor peaceful. It is, however, happy. Are you really leaving us? The doctor asks Kym with a genuine show of regret. Dressed for the road, Kym smiles and says, I don't think I'll ever be able to perform the duties of a caregiver properly. To tell you the truth, Kym, I still can't get over the fact that it's even possible to do it your way. With a serious look, he adds, I wonder if your hands give off some substance like signpost. Otherwise, I can't imagine how she could have died so happily. Kym turns his palms toward the doctor. They're just ordinary hands. Nothing special. Not so sure about that, the doctor says. If we spent some time studying them properly, maybe... Keim shakes his head with a sour smile as if to say, you wouldn't find a thing. He does have one point to make with the doctor. I've seen lots of people die alone, probably a lot more than any of you doctors have. That's why I wanted to bring her together with her family at the end. That's the only reason I took her hands. The doctor's vague nod suggests that he is not convinced, but Keim is through talking with him. He strides off towards the highway. He must continue his journey. His journey will go on as long as he is unable to reply to Henri's question. Why was I ever born? Henri had a family, at least. Her life consisted of joining and leaving her family. Keim has not had even that much. Where did I come from? Where am I going? Why does the passing wind draw Keim along his endless journey? A journey without signposts. This is why Keim is always free and always alone. End. All right, well, that was another devastating dream. I feel like a lot of these, like the worst ones to me, have been, or the most like that, make, I guess, me emotional, are the ones that like involve a young girl in some form or another. Those ones always seem like they are just the most brutal. Maybe they wrote them in that way for a reason. But all right. Anyways, let me just check what my time is like here. Oh yeah, we're way over. All right. All right, so I'm going to cut this one here. As always, I hope the guide was helpful and hope you join me for more videos. Thanks for watching.